So today's video is basically revisiting to one of my old builds, the Electro kind of stun build using a laser cannon in the back once the enemy's stunned to completely annihilate them. I'm not gonna lie, it's not as viable as it used to be. There's some big kinks in the build, and as usual, I don't have all the attachments that I would like to have for the build, but it does fairly, and has done fairly well in PvP. I've found people aren't seeing it as often, so they kinda freak out a little bit when you're coming in and stunning them. Now, initially I did feel bad for this guy. He seemed to be really low ranked, and I thought he was coming into a situation that he had no idea about, until I noticed that he was pretty much using Salvation Ray or, you know, one of its brother or sister guns. At that point, my sympathy for him just dwindled into nothing, and I thought, you know what, let's just annihilate him. And that's the advantage of this build, is that you can pretty much just boost towards your enemy, and if they allow you to get close, you're going to take a chunk out of their stamina and potentially stun them. And with the current meta, the way it is, everybody's running laser weapons, and as a result, they're not using Mirage quite as much. So, it gives me the free ability to use Mirage while basically draining their health, stamina, and potentially stunning them, and getting them into a position where they don't want to be. Now you can see in the footage that I am still a bit unsure with this build. It was back when I hadn't used it for a while. As a result, I kept pressing the button a couple of times to try and get the laser cannon to fire, and as a result it didn't. You need to hold it in, and I just screwed that up. Otherwise this guy would have dropped a lot quicker than they actually did, and that's the kind of thing to get used to with this build, is charging the laser cannon and using it well. Aiming it is also vital. Another thing to take note of is that I'm using two different types of arc gun. There's the Riot Light, which is the boss one from the Bolt fight, and there's Cyclops, which you can get from basically dropped arsenals. Now, Riot Light is really good because it has a massive stamina drain as well as the stun, and it's got better range. Cyclops is good if your opponent is spamming a lot of mirages, because it'll hit multiple targets at the same time. So if you are against different types of opponents, you can swap between them and try and get some sort of balance. Both work really well, but I tend to find against average opponents you're looking at the Riot Light more than the Cyclops. Now let's have a little discussion about the meta itself. The current meta revolves around three different things. There is sniper rifles, laser cannons, whether that be your just shot ones or your charge ones especially, and your shields. Now the current average player usually kicks about with at least one laser cannon, at least one sniper rifle, and at least one shield, using a combination of maybe two sniper rifles versus two laser cannons. The reason this is problematic, especially for this build, is that shields pretty much negate arc guns completely. They put on a shield, the stun doesn't happen, the stamina drain doesn't happen, and the damage is drastically reduced. So against anyone with a shield, this weapon is, well, this build is just useless. The weapon itself doesn't do anything, and there's not a lot you can do. Now, a way you could solve that is to have some other weapons on your back. The problem with that being, unless it's sniper rifles or laser cannons, you're really not going to be doing or outputting enough damage or having enough accuracy to basically take out the shield, which is the primary goal at that point. And as a result of that, the meta has basically stagnated back to where it was before Devotion got banned from it. So instead of people using sniper rifles in Devotion, you've pretty much just got shields, laser cannons, and sniper rifles. Sniper rifles, I don't know why they buffed them, but they really shouldn't have. It's just made them even more viable than they were before, and most opponents have at least one of them on them, and it just makes it really difficult to do much against it. Unless you're running sniper rifles and laser cannons, you can't really counter the two effectively in most cases. Don't get me wrong though, a good build and a good player will always beat a bad build and a bad player. If someone doesn't know how to use the weapons they're trying to utilise effectively, yeah, they're not going to be able to win consistently. But with the prevalence of Salvation Ray, and if you've been hit by that recently, it does, on me, usually about at least 15% health. And that's a huge chunk of health, and that's only one Salvation Ray. I've been hit by two at the one time, and you are looking, 30% of your health down instantly. And that's just from you making one mistake. The enemy can, if they're using those types of weapons, can make a ton of mistakes against a myriad of other weapons and still have like nearly full health. For example, my main build is usually the machine gun arms, and when I go up against someone, unless they are playing incredibly badly and I get a bunch of shots in consistently, I'm talking about maybe about 5% of their health per mid-barrage. Then if they let me basically just shoot them, their health is going to get liquefied really quickly. But when you add that with shields, that then stops that damage, so they don't need to worry about making the mistakes as much, because they can take the extra hits. Don't get me wrong, if they just sit there and take the damage, the shield's going to break, and then they're going to suddenly take a crap ton of damage and die. But most players that are using them are a lot more cautious than that. They keep their distance. They use the shield to basically stop you from doing the damage close up, and then they get away before you can damage the shield significantly. And then, while you're charging them, they're shooting you with the laser cannons, whether it's charged or normal ones. Sniper rifles, same principle. They're just backing off, shooting you at a distance that you can compete with in most cases. Because if you're not using these two weapons, you don't have the same amount of range. As a result, it just feels like we've went back to stage one. Yeah, we don't have the cancer that is devotion plaguing the PvP scene, but now we've got everybody using, again, the exact same stuff. We've got sniper rifles running rampant still, and then we've got laser cannons doing it as well. And the damage of them definitely needs nerfed a bit, or at least the accuracy or something needs tweaked, because they just do way too much for way too little in terms of cost. I mean, I don't think I've ran up against anybody with laser cannons running out of ammo, whereas with my machine gun build for the dual arms, my ammo just disappears really quickly, even if I'm being modest with it, even if I'm saving it for when I'm only close. The 5 minutes just bleeds through that ammo consistently, and if you watch my play style, I'm quite, rapid and dodgy and flighty. I am not just spamming the guns until usually the last minute, when I'm just get all the ammo out and see if I can do any extra damage. But yeah, it just feels like there is a massive disparity between some weapons damage versus others. And when you look at how much damage they do per shot, it is a massive thing, especially when Salvation Ray isn't exactly a slow weapon. The charge, is debatably slow, but even an uncharged shot is quite significant. And sniper rifles, their shots have always been significant, even more so now. So this next clip is basically the issue with this build. It's completely stonewalled by shields. Now, this guy is not that great. He makes a ton of mistakes. He's pretty much getting shocked by me the whole way through, and he's just not going down. He's not losing stamina, he's not getting stunned. Now, he could have a load of stun resistance, but there's nothing that stops the stamina drain. The only thing that stops the stamina drain is the shield. But, from what I understand, or at least what I've seen, the shield doesn't seem to get broken by arc guns. I've tried it a ton of times, and I've got people down to 30% health, and the shield hasn't broken. Now, in other builds, I've shot the crap out of them, and the shield is broken before they've even went down 10% health, because the shield's been blocking all the damage. So it feels with arc guns that the shield is stopping damage, as well as stopping the stamina drain and the stun, but not taking any damage. And if it is, it's taking such a small amount that it just completely makes it unbalanced in comparison to the arc guns. There should be some sort of give and take. It should be, yeah, you don't do any damage, yeah, you're not going to stun them, but they still lose stamina, so that they have to, use something else in order to actually combat you, so that they can't just put on a shield and then be therefore invincible if that's the only weapon you've got on you. Now, this isn't to say in this battle that I was playing at my best. You can see I run out my stamina quite often and fall to the ground, which allows them to get a lot of free hits on me. But at the same time, if I'm using a stamina draining tactic, you'd think that, it would be him that is stopping. I'm trying to keep up with him, but he is able to just keep going no matter what I do. And that's, again, the problem with the shields. It just completely made this build irrelevant. And this is the kind of problem in the meta currently, is there's quite a few weapons that just aren't viable. You've got your bazookas and your acid guns and stuff like that, and they just aren't going to work. They just don't have any utility in comparison to the lasers and sniper rifles. And they definitely, it's early days, they still have a lot of time to work on these kind of things. But it's frustrating when you're trying to be different and do something different, and you're not going to get a win because everybody's using the same build, and the build is, frankly, overpowered in comparison to the rest. Don't get me wrong, if I was using those builds as well, I'd be having the same amount of success as other people, but it's one of those things I've never felt a compulsion to do. I always want to use something weird or different in comparison to everybody else. Now, this next clip is a bonus one. This guy, I through the match, I felt like I couldn't really get any real damage to him. I, at first, seemed to be doing quite well, as you'll see, but as it gets further and further into the fight, you see he starts to dominate me. Again, laser cannons do a lot of damage, so it just takes you to make a couple of little mistakes, and your health goes down a lot. And as a result, I just kind of felt that there was no real way to get this guy other than him make a big mistake, allow me to get close, get a bunch of stamina drain and stun on him, and then blast him into the dirt with a laser cannon. Fortunately, Fate had other plans, which you'll see in a little second. Now, I'm not going to lie, at this point in the fight I thought, did we just time out? I thought we had a couple of more minutes left. We did. My opponent flew into the red barrier. And as you can see from his score, his ranking, you know he felt that. I pretty much include this just because it was funny. So this is the build, guys. As you can see, it's not fully optimized as usual. I'm just using your sight magnifiers, your enhanced flight systems, stamina processor, because, you know, I run out of stamina way too much, and just general resistance boosts, as well as memory optimization. When it comes to the weapons, I'm not using the best stuff that's on there, but the build does work even without the full kind of upgrades in the attachments. But as you can see, Hera's Grudge is pumping in power, and that was the most important thing. If that hits, it will mince anything for the most part. So, that was the video. Thank you very much for watching if you've managed to get to this point, and please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe for more content like this in the future. It's difficult to get the PvP content I want, if I'm honest, because in order to be viable, I'm going to have to use a meta build. So I might do that next time just to see how I do and see if I can, you know, show how easy it is to pump rank with a build that actually, you know, is a bit overpowered. But we'll see. Anywho, good night and enjoy the rest of your evening.